Your team keeps asking the same questions. They keep pulling you back to decisions you thought you delegated. If this is happening, it's not because your team is lazy or bad at their job. It's because your delegation is missing one critical SOP. I learned this while scaling a $100 million operations. My team kept pulling me back in until I set up one system. After that, they executed independently and the business stopped relying on me. In this video, I'll show you the 5 SOPs I use and which ones you need to build first so your business actually runs without you. What exactly is a standard operating procedure or SOP? Document a procedure that makes the procedure repeatable so that way you can get similar or better quality every single time. And the reason why we want to do this is, yes, it documents how to do something, it makes it repeatable, but it also makes something scalable. So that is the magic of what I'm going to teach, and why SOPs were so important to me in my agency is that I was able to scale specific procedures across 75 people, and I could hire much quicker and reduce my day-to-day stress and involvement completely with certain unique ways. Now, in my business, I really set up a hierarchy of more or less 5 types of SOPs, and they're really all the same thing, but they have different purposes. So I made this image down below to show you what that looks like. And you'll notice that daily operating SOPs, I call them daily SOPs, are at the heart of this. And this is what most people get wrong. You need something to connect all of your documentation together. As I was scaling Otter Public Relations, we built out procedures and trainings, but we didn't really assign them to people. The SOPs had owners, but it wasn't part of someone's daily routine. And so this really helped once we started putting in the daily operating kind of SOPs. Now with Eaton Corporation, I did the exact same thing at a $100 million facility. And I saw the same thing is once you get accountability to these SOPs, everything's gonna work better. And don't worry, I have examples for you guys and you can download them down below, but I'm gonna walk you through each one of these. So policies. Policies are kind of high level, more internal company when I view it. It's how do we engage with a certain thing? So think about handbooks, think about vacation requests, PTO, things like that are company policies. Now we can have policies that affect other parts of the business, but I really view that more as a playbook because typically a policy is a very strict, this is what it is, we follow this policy. For example, you could technically have a return policy, but I teach that more as a playbook and I'll explain why in a little bit. But the next piece of this is, so you have policies, then you have procedures or processes. This is really where something is happening consistent, but it's multiple tasks. So it's not just one, like do this YouTube video and post it. Here are the tasks you need to do. It's a process where it's you're in charge of YouTube. Here are the different tasks involved in it. And here are the goals of the outcome that I'm looking for. Now the magic again comes when you connect this procedure or process to a daily SOP. And I'm gonna make this more visual for you as we connect, but we're making a spider web of documents. And the goal is that you have one central piece that everyone can reference. They know exactly what their expectations are. And that's done from having this daily SOP. Now, task-based SOPs and procedure are very similar. I use the same templates, but a task is way more detailed. So it's probably a how-to. So how to post a YouTube video. Now the difference between the how-to and the procedure is with the procedure, the person's probably gonna own the YouTube value stream. And so they're gonna have a goal tied to that and they'll understand that part of their task is to post the video. But once they post the video, they want this outcome. So that's really the difference. Now playbooks are more flexible. They're kind of higher than procedures in that hierarchy where a procedure is a value stream, but a procedure usually is pretty defined. Whereas a playbook is more of something like maybe you have a customer retention policy or you have a refund kind of playbook where if there's an issue, people are empowered to do something and make decisions. And I'm gonna show you all of these in detailed examples. So I'm gonna clear this up, but I wanna show you, again, this is how it all fits together. So as we go through these examples, you'll understand how it fits together. Now, daily SOPs, this is what we talked about. This is really the rhythm of your day. So it's what are you supposed to do, every single task, every process, what you own, what your goals are, what your outcomes are. And I know that seems like a lot, but it's really pretty simple. So here's the example. You can grab this for free as part of the Founder Systems AI course, but we have the free download below for our SOPs. Really important to structure this correctly, because if you don't, everything else will fall apart. Because I've done this where for Otter Public Relations, we documented hundreds of SOPs, but no one referenced them because there was no way to reference them. So what we did was we basically we're using just Google Drive, super simple. We built out these documents for more their job, and it also helped a lot with onboarding, but let me walk through this. So there's some of this is just for organization. We have a name, a document number, and this is just an example of for my sales team. Job title, who it's for, approved by manager. So all of these help keep it organized, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But then we have the overview. So this is the overview of the job. This is kind of like the job description. It's really important to reinforce what people are expected to do at your company, because it builds clarity and reduces stress in the job. They just know what they're doing, what their outcome's supposed to be, why they're doing it, which is the next step. So in the why, it's the same thing, is what impact does this have to the company, but also what impact does this have to the client? So if you're in sales, a big piece of your why is, for my PR firm, we understand that we have the ability to get clients in the news and what impact that could have to their business, their life, their family. And so they're there to really help their clients, not just help make sales for the business. So understanding that why is so critical, and making it genuine to that job role and making it fit the bigger picture of the company why. Now, goals are really critical too, because the difference between doing a task and being, a great employee is having their own goals, so they can have some autonomy to operate and basically fit into these goals. But really, with my sales team, they have sales goals. It's simple as that is. They need MMR, they need total sales, they need annual kind of numbers. And this helps them know if they're doing a good job or not. So they don't have to come in and check up, am I doing a good job? Is my job safe? What can I be doing better? It's all here. And so that's kind of the big piece to these daily SOPs, and this daily SOP template is it helps you build that cadence. Now in here, one of the key things that you'll also find is priorities. Now I've done a whole separate video on this, but priorities are really, really critical, because if you give, there's a lot of tasks here. If they have all these tasks, but they don't know what the priority is. So let's just say they have a whole bunch of new sales calls coming in, but they're also have a whole bunch of follow-ups they need to do. Which one do they do first? And are they allowed to cancel sales calls to do follow-ups? Or things like that need to be very clear and documented. And it takes some time to get this. This is obviously a revision that's been modified multiple times, but you're setting expectations so people know what they need to do and know what's most important. So for my team, based on this, if they had a full day of follow-up calls with hot leads, that would take precedent over everything else. So now they do need to still get things done across the board, but they do know that that would probably be okay with leadership if they had a busy day and they just did their follow-ups. Then obviously descriptions of what's going on are super important. The notes, how much time should it take a day? Now these numbers aren't exact, but we have it where they're not doing as many follow-ups and they're doing more kind of new calls, and that can be fluctuating. Then skill set, super important as well. This is for a management tool. Basically, how comfortable is that rep with that specific procedure, process, or task? Are they an expert in it? Are they intermediate at it? Are they not doing it? Do they not like doing it? And then we have notes for them. So this is really focused on new hires. As they come in, they're able to put in documentation on how they think things are going. Maybe they didn't get to this, they can explain why, and they can submit this to their manager. Now, we don't require that most of the time unless it's a brand new employee. And a lot of times they're just going over that on their one-on-ones, which is part of their SOP somewhere. You will see one-on-ones in here. But the next thing is we're linking to our task-based procedure SOPs like this. So this is a task one. Task and procedure for my templates are the same. Again, you can grab this template down below. You don't need everything here. A lot of this is part of my organization structure, which I will show you at the end, but it makes it really easy to keep these filed, organized so they don't get lost. So everyone has access to them and they're really well connected. But again, we're gonna have the overview, document information, the why is really important. A lot of this you can kind of skip, or I put into AI and have it build it for me. But the next big thing is procedures and then goals. So making sure that you have what they're doing, what the outcome is. You wanna make sure that you have a clear owner, and you can modify this to fit you. We do have revision histories. We do all this in Google, so it stays kind of really tight. And that is really, let's go back to that circle so far. So we've covered basically the daily, which is the center of an employee's world, and it connects everything. And then we've gone over procedures and tasks. So those are the key ones that we're gonna use pretty much every single day. And that's really what these are pointing to. Now do stick around because I'm gonna show you again how I make all of this connect in a more company-wide center. So there's a different center on the company piece of it, which is one of my favorite parts. And it allows me to build some AI tools off of it as well. But we're gonna come back in. So then we went over our daily SOPs, then basically procedures versus tasks. And so some examples here are sending a welcome email is more of a task. So if you want to get really documented with like that onboarding process, you have a task there. Processing a refund is, again, it's just a task. There would be probably a playbook with preventing the refund, whereas a procedure might be more of a client onboarding. So you'll see that sending that welcome email might be a task in that onboarding. And if it's complicated, it might have its own document. And one of the reasons why it might have its own document is because there might be a template of what we do, or it might just be automated. So there's just so many different ways to look at that. But again, we already went through that example and you can grab that down below. Then the next thing in here is policies. So policies again are, like I said, the handbook, PTO, pay. I don't have a template for you on that one just because they're just gonna be super customizable. What I would do is more or less take this template and use the same thing, just adjust it to be a policy and you can explain the same thing. Handbooks are a little different, but when I do kind of policies or even playbooks, I'm using very similar formatting. So I'm just keeping this initial formatting. Now, playbooks are really cool. Playbooks are basically a process or procedure SOP, but with more kind of flexibility for people to make decisions. So the goal isn't necessarily to give the same instructions every single time. It's to empower your team. And this is one of the biggest things that stopped things from getting to my plate. And so I have an example here. It's basically a refund request or unhappy customer. How do we solve issues before they actually become issues? So you can see template is similar. This one's less formatted. This is an actual document. So the biggest thing here is if there's a potential client issue or to completely avoid a client issue, my team is empowered to make decisions. So you'll see there's a hierarchy of empowerment, whereas my publicist and account managers can spend $250 to make a client happy. So that could be a gift, that could be a ad, that could be just additional resources, that could be whatever it needs to be. Now our account strategists can spend more. They can spend $500. Then the department managers can spend $750. Sales managers can spend $2,000 and extend a client account. Our COO has even more power. And then if we need more, our C-suite with 2 people's approval can do even more. And then past that, that's when the founder gets involved. And so what this really does is, it's a crazy story, but I heard one of my senior executives who didn't have this in place was arguing about a $200 ad spend for a client that was over budget for their kind of account. And we were about to lose the client. The client was pissed. And as an owner, I thought it was a no-brainer. My team would just know to do that. So it became a refund request. It made it to me. It was a potential negative review. There are so many red flags in that process. And it's just because I didn't document the empowerment. That's literally never happened again once we implemented this. And so this is why it's more of a playbook, because they have a lot of autonomy at the back end of what they can do. And it's more of that empowerment. So let's jump back in. And this can be things like crisis management plans, leadership training, like I have a leadership playbook between me and my co-founder. And there's some simple things in there. One of the items that we put in ours is we literally take the day off or don't talk to team members when we don't feel good. There was a while where, if we had a bad day, we'd come in and that attitude would spread. So, and everyone has a bad day. So building in these playbooks, while it sounds simple, that's just between me and my co-founder. So it wasn't really like a publicly document. It's just us, but it did reinforce that, hey, if you don't feel good, you're allowed to take a day off. You can go do whatever you need to do. You can work in quiet, you can work from home. So these things are super critical. Now, I did promise I'd show you how I connect all of these. So let me pull up my document here. Now, the last piece of this is as you scale, you might start off with 1 or 2 documents and have really good templates, but then documents start getting lost. People leave, they get deleted from their Google Drive, organization falls apart. And we saw this happen multiple times where I would build something and then 3 to 6 months later, I'd have to rebuild it. I couldn't find the video, I couldn't find the training document. It was a mess. And I felt like I was spinning my wheels on this forever wheel of communication and bad training and bad leadership on my part. And so we implemented a master system. Now at Eaton, we use something called SAP, which had its own problems. And so this actually solves a lot of the problems. But I'm gonna go over, again, we have this download as part of the Founder Systems AI course and community. It's a freebie, but similar, we had that document number. So that's what you saw on there. This is just information about Founder Systems AI. So it's a little different than what I normally do, but document number, whether it's active, inactive, or needs to be updated. And I'll explain why that's so important in a second. But active obviously means it's working. Inactive could be maybe the task, we're not doing it, we're not using that software anymore, somebody left. Then what type? So I mentioned that there's 5 types that we went through, but there's really more, and you can name these however you want. So I have knowledge base, which I use as more like an FAQ, daily SOP, task SOP, software SOP, and I'm just trying to get it a little bit more nuanced for my team, even down to presentations and transcripts, which is just specific to my course, and it makes it easier for me to find. Now, department is kind of like a folder. It's like what part of the company is actually using this, and this helps me filter through. So if I'm on sales, I can filter to sales department and go through all their documents and make sure they're up to date, things like that. I can have an easier audit system. And then obviously as clear as possible of a name. Then our owners are super important because it tells me who's responsible for keeping this up to date. Last updated, most of my documents are required to be updated annually, depending on what it is. Obviously a transcript or presentation might just have to be skimmed and the date will be changed, but that's what will automatically change this to needs to be updated. Is it's over a year old, it just needs to be reviewed to make sure it's still relevant. And that is super important that your documents stay up to date. Then over here, we just kind of combine all that information. You can see a little formula and you get a title name. Then the biggest thing is I have a master folder here. And this master folder is super organized in numbers and there's no subfolders. So you could have a subfolder, maybe if it's like marketing assets, and then you link to it and it's a subfolder in there. But typically any documentation is not a subfolder. And so that way it's super easy. If I'm looking for document 30 is right there. It's a transcript from my videos. And then I can use this to upload it to an AI system. These examples help you understand how to use standard operating procedures better, how to connect them so that your team actually gets to use them, the templates that you need, the examples, and then again, the why is just so important. So you can repeatedly have a process done to get better quality and take yourself out of the decision making. So here's what we covered. Your delegation isn't failing because your team doesn't care. It's failing because they don't have daily clarity on what to do. If you want the 5 SOPs I use plus the templates to implement them, grab the templates below. Most founders who implement this see results in the first week. And if you want to scale with other founders doing the same thing, join the Founder Systems AI course and community.